I just beat Splatoon Raiders, and I have to be honest. Splatoon Raiders has been a complete and utter roller coaster of a ride for me for any game. It was easily one of my most anticipated video games of all time when it was first revealed. My mind was taking me along a journey of it being kind of like an Octo expansion, more of a giant single player adventure type of thing rather than an extraction shooter. And when I saw Salmonid on the first trailer, I immediately was shot down. In fact, every single Splatoon Direct and every single showcase, even the demo that I played at the store, nothing was really bringing me into enjoying what this game was having to offer. I mean, after all, I really did not like Salmon Run. It's probably one of my least favorite parts of the entire Splatoon series. But after playing the game for well over 50 hours, how do I actually feel about it? Well, before I give you my answer, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Splatoon and Nintendo in general. We are so close to our goal of 400k. You guys can easily make that happen by just leaving a like and subscribing from today's video. Let's see how many people we can get to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's dive into my full Splatoon Raiders opinions. My first couple of hours with this game wasn't very impressive. It was fine. It was very basic missions, extremely easy difficulty, even though I played on the most hard difficulty the entire time. I already forgot the name of which one that is, but yeah, I just wasn't being tested. All the dens, challenges, and even treasure tracking was pretty straightforward and simple. There was no off the beaten path exploration. This really wasn't what I was really hoping for a single player Splatoon game, but it still was enough to keep me going. I found myself not let down, but just kind of going through the motions until I looked at the timer and it said around 3 to 4 hours has went by, and I've already found myself slowly looking at my Nintendo Switch 2 from across the room, ready to jump in for more. But I don't know what it was or exactly when it was, but something just clicked and it never let go of me. I believe it was the moment we were able to start buying gadgets for your 3 different tanks, because oh my gosh, gadgets is genuinely what made this game so interesting for me. The gadgets ran this game. They are so much fun. There's so many different gadgets that you can put. Each gadget has its own customizable option, which is really cool. And for the bulk of the story mode, I really just messed around with all the different gadgets to see what they could all do and unlock their cool parts and stuff. But man, you really don't get to see what these gadgets can do until you start getting into some of that post game, where you really start filling out your kits, getting all the attachments for your gadgets, and seeing how you can make the ultimate gadget in order to bust through some of that crazy post-game stuff, which we will talk about. But man, these gadgets, I mean, from start to end, captivated me, because there's so many different ways that you can use them eventually as you start exploring more and more with them. The gadgets are so cool. I really hope that Splatoon 4 does something similar, but on a smaller scale. Obviously, they're not going to have gadgets that allow you to one-shot enemies or just super powerful, wide-ranging, sweeping attacks, but something more simple. Imagine you're able to use the splat boomerang thing, and we're just going to call it boomerang. You can throw the boomerang out, it comes right back at you. Or you can place a mod on it that allows it to go out further, but less damage. Or a mod that makes it come out a lot shorter, but more damage. Or maybe a mod that goes out and comes back very fast, but it circles around you when it returns. Having different mods for different subs in the new Splatoon would be so cool, but it would be balanced. It wouldn't be something off the walls like you have with these gadgets in Splatoon Raiders, but it just really makes me want more customizable options like this in the future Splatoon game, because dude, my eyes just grew so big thinking of the possibilities. So many of these gadgets would actually work really well just dumbed down for multiplayer purposes. You also have a bunch of weapons, and honestly it was just fun to kind of pick random weapons on some stages, but as you started getting into harder and harder levels, you probably have 1 or 2 weapons that you're going to constantly use over and over again, especially towards the end of the game, where you can only get level 50 weapons, so you're probably going to find your favorite, level that one up, and just stick with that one. Which does make a large amount of the weapons in the game kind of unnecessary. There is pretty much every single weapon from Splatoon 3 thrown into this this game. Every single type, even new types. I mean, it's ridiculous. I think there's like over 120 variants of weapons in this game, which is crazy. And you can even try to track them all down in order for a 100% completion, which I'm not doing all that now. But yeah, it's pretty much random how you get weapons anyway, so it's RNG based. I don't really care enough to really track all these things down right now. That's something that I can do with the post game. But man, there's so many weapons, but so many of them are just pointless. I never found myself really wanting to use a roller or shoot even like a bucket. Lots of the bucket options were just silly. Same with the umbrella. You know, there's just a bunch that just did not make a lot of sense to me. I really like the stringers, but I didn't really have a purpose using them here. And same with the Splatoon guns. They play a lot heavier, and lots of the gadgets in this game, and especially some of the later levels, is going to have you moving around real fast and stuff, and you don't really have time to sit there and charge a Splatoon gun. So yeah, some of the weapons were just like pointless in my opinion, but it was cool to have all these options if you so desire to play a certain way. Now, each tank has its own gadgets, and later in the post-game, it'll combine two predetermined tanks that you can choose one gadget from one and two from the main tank if you so desire, which is pretty cool. You can kind of mix and match a little bit with that. I wish all three tanks were available to be mixed and matched towards the end, but no, you can't do that. Only two already predetermined ones, but still, this opened up the door for so many things because I started this game thinking the speed tank was awful. I was like, no one's going to use this thing. I mean, there's no purpose to use this thing, especially when you're in dens getting crowded. These things just aren't strong enough. So for me, it started off power tank, then tactical, and then speed as my third favorite. It completely flipped towards the end. I got to a point where I had to keep switching tanks and coming up with new metas because it was getting so difficult towards that post game, which I will talk more in depth here soon. But dude, it was getting so difficult. I had to keep changing up my formula. It wasn't just sticking with one certain thing until the very end. I found a set of devices that worked perfect for me, and pretty much my loadout flipped. Speed tank ended up being my most useful, then tactical, then power at the end. And there was about 5 to 6 gadgets that I would keep switching in and out because they were so effective. There's a bunch of gadgets as well that in my opinion aren't that great. I think that boost bomb thing that just blasts you forward is genuinely awful. And there's a couple others that have that same kind of effect, like the one that shoots the target lines that just kind of stay projected out and enemies can bump into them for some chip damage. It's just kind of ridiculous if you ask me. Or the one that shoots out mini killer whales that just follow you around like a tether, I felt was also pretty pointless. Now the game gives you about 4 different types of stages that you could go through. The first one is reach the gold treasure stages. This is the closest you're going to get to an action adventure, kind of exploring an area. There's a couple of small reasons why you can explore the surrounding terrain. There might be a hidden briny scroll, which is the new sunken scrolls in this game, or some type of hidden compass that will lead you to another type of level we'll talk about here in a second. But for the most part, these are extremely linear levels, but these were some of my favorites. They felt the more like an action-adventure platforming thing. I wish they expanded on these levels a bit more and added more things from like the single-player story modes, more objects and gimmicks to mess around with. Would have been cool. You have Mine the Crystal stages, which has you taking out hordes of salmonid in little army squadrons that you come across, which are these mini crystals. Once you take out all the enemies, you can mine these crystals for spiralite until you have enough power eggs to mine the big crystal towards the beginning of that stage. These are more open areas, almost like open sandbox levels, which I thought were pretty cool. You can go off in any direction and take out any crystal in any order that you want, which is a cool little sense of openness this game gives you. And then you have dens. There's 2 different types here. You can have single stage raid dens that normally has you taking out a bunch of one type of enemy archetype over and over again before the stage looks something like this. It looks insane, I know, because it is. And then you have multi-floor dens, which will have you going through 3 different floors, with the final one being some type of new salt-crusted mini-boss that's amped up and powered up to the max. And the last stage you have is another one of my favorites, which are these challenge dens. These are very much like the missions from the single-player game. There's a challenge den for every single gadget in the game, plus some extra ones that mess around with some other things like the surfboard, and also one that literally has you using no weapons whatsoever. These are super creative. I wish they did a little bit more with them, and honestly, I wish there were even more. There's a good amount here, but they're pretty simple outside of only a few really testing you. But I absolutely loved tracking these things down with the compasses and even playing through them. They were a blast, and honestly, I love these little missions. I could have played like a game of just hundreds of these things, honestly. I guess that's what Splatoon 4 single player is for. But if there's one type of mission that I truly was getting tired of, it's the 3-level dens, because it's not like these were super difficult, and eventually I got a build that allowed me to really never take damage or even lose a life, but at the same time, I had to beat these stages in a certain time limit, and this time limit was really starting to get frustrating for me. There were some times where I felt like I played flawlessly in a den, but I lost because I couldn't collect enough power eggs because the timer ran out, and the way the enemies spawned, I just could not collect enough in time, no matter how well I played. This wasn't too much of an issue for the main game. You level up at a really good pace, and even if you need to go back and level up a little bit more, it doesn't feel like tedious grinding because you can go back and play a previously completed stage, and you can actually do it for a good purpose. Some dens have you playing through with each tank in order to get 3 different treasures, which has you coming back and trying out different gadgets and stuff and seeing if you can complete them. Eventually, you'll even unlock a harder mode and even a harder mode for past levels, so if you need to go back and get an extra level or two, it doesn't feel like a drag, at least once again, not in the beginning it didn't. The world itself is where I start to bring up my first negative. The worlds aren't that exciting. The music to the worlds aren't great either, and they're just kind of basic. There's only 3 themes that are repeated throughout the entire course of the game, which technically, equal around 3 worlds, which also was pretty short in my opinion. Now, like I said, I put in over 50 hours completing this game to, what I felt was enough for me, but still, 3 worlds, I really wish they had done more because that only means 3 bosses as well before the final boss. There's only a beach world, a volcanic world, and an ice world, and they all feel kind of the same. They're not really anything super unique. It's your basic beaches, it's your basic volcano cliffside, and your basic ice snow-covered region. Nothing that really stands out here. Which is a bit of a shame considering the fact that Nintendo and the Splatoon team normally come up with some really unique ideas to kind of tie in some story lore and stuff to the actual world design, like an upside down Eiffel Tower in the main hub of Splatoon 3. Stuff like that is always interesting to see, but it felt pretty lackluster. There was no real remnants of human past outside of some forks or some kitchen utensils sticking out of the ocean in the background, and even the concept art showing a giant water park did not make the cut whatsoever in this game, outside of maybe some abandoned water slides. If you peek at the background of one of the dens, that's really all you're gonna get. You're always gonna be spending your currency on something. There's so many things to level up in this game, from your own character's stats to their power, their health, all the slots that they can carry in their gadgets, to even powering up your gadgets themselves. You can unlock so many different things, especially in the post game. You'll have the option to unlock tons of perks for all your gadgets. You can put perks on weapons, upgrade weapons, and even sell them. You can upgrade your home base by adding training facility stuff and even a little arcade machine. Each treasure that you collect and bring back can even be a special relic power that you can equip for your Inkling. There's so many different options and things that you can play around with to truly make the ultimate loadout for your character, which really has you thinking what's the best way to handle each dungeon or den. And don't worry, if you're a 100% collector person, there's still so much to do. You can unlock every single relic power. You can find every single weapon variety that's offered in this game, which after 50 hours, I still am just over halfway of finding all the weapons. Sunken Scrolls are back, now deemed Briny Scrolls, which gives you a little bit of lore on Deep Cut and their history, the Salmonid, and even the story as it plays out. You can get some more background knowledge of what happened to this place that you're at. There's even salmonid research sections where you can actually look at all the different salmonid and their descriptions and learn about them, but you just have to kill an unbelievable amount of them in order to unlock all 3 slots in order to get all the lore and details about them. I think it's super annoying to have to kill one of the major bosses more than 5 times, which I don't even know what the third unlock is. It might be like 7 or 9 times just to get all the lore details about them. It's kind of ridiculous. But there's so much to collect, so much to do, and I haven't even talked about the ending and post-game yet. If you can't tell, I easily got sucked in and addicted to this game. But I do have more to share, and if you don't want to hear about the ending or post-game and you just want to see my final review, skip to the time on screen. Alright, let's dive in. First off, Splatoon 3 has 3 main bosses that are called Mythic Salmonid before you get to the final boss. These are great. Instead of having some quick little easy thing that you have to do like in the mainline games, do the same thing 3 times, you can take out a boss in like a minute. These are full-fledged boss battles with giant health bars that you have to slowly chip down, and even 2 sections where it has you taking out other Salmonid to collect enough power eggs to hit it with a drill attack and knock it down. These are some really big standouts, and once again, I just wish there were more. Only having 3 of them felt very small, even for a spin-off game that was only $50. Seriously, when I think about what my major complaint is, it's still just the fact that there's only 3 generic looking worlds. If there were more worlds with better theming, this could have been dang near a 10 out of 10 experience for me. Now, the ending of the game, while not perfect, was still a fabulous ending. It had you really going down into the depths of the home of the Salmonid, finding out what the problem and the source of this problem was. I just wish there were more linear levels that we could go through with more obstacle course-like situations, you know what I mean? Because I felt like 90% of the ending was just going through the Salmonid mess hall, which was just dropping down multiple floors, starting at 3 floors at a time, then 5, and then a whopping 10, which is, it was a lot. Out of nowhere, the difficulty ramped up to super overtime, dude. And for the first time in the game, this is where I had to start really changing up my loadout and finding what would be the most meta and help me out the most going down these floors, because completing 10 floors without losing is a challenge for sure. And I've already talked about the final boss in multiple videos already, but it's peak. The first phase of riding on the surfboard is so cool, but honestly, I do wish there were more parts where we fought him directly instead of just gathering power eggs, fighting enemies in hordes. I feel like that would have been a lot better, but traversing the platforms in order to reach the new horde was pretty cool. Plus, the story implications and cutscenes that it had was freaking awesome. It was very cinematic of an ending. But I've been hearing a lot about this post-game online, and that it was where the game really started to get fun, and unfortunately for me, it wasn't the case. If anything, it didn't get worse, it just started to get a bit more stale compared to what I've been playing. You're just going through den floors 3 at a time, taking out tons of hordes of enemies until you make it to floor 100 to get a special secret boss. But gosh, for the most part, this was pretty tedious. For one, odds are you're going to be at a lot lower level than when you're supposed to be, and each floor you go down increases by 1 level. And you're not leveling up fast enough to continue leveling up with these levels, but the game doesn't tell you don't necessarily need to be that same level, even though it says red letters and it says warning, danger. This is not like the main game. You can actually be perfectly fine being well under leveled here and fighting these enemies and bosses and mowing through these floors if you have the right build. But the game doesn't tell you that. It just kind of scares you, making it seem like it's impossible. Once I found the right loadout and I was able to start going, I was sent off on my adventure, and it was pretty easy until you got toward the end, around floor 80 and especially floor 90, where man, they cranked up the difficulty. I found myself a couple times having to go back and try to level up a bit more, which was forcing some unnecessary grinding in my opinion. This is where it starts to become boring, when I have to go back and play past levels that I don't really need to. Especially once I've done all the difficulty levels, collected everything I needed to collect in those past levels, there's no reason to go back to them outside of just some baseline grinding, which just was not fun to me. And after a while, doing these just endless dens of the same exact enemy archetypes over and over again with the same exact backgrounds and the same exact level design, it was getting kind of boring. And this wasn't until I started having to grind. The grinding is what kind of brought this to a halt for me, because I still had a blast going through these dungeons, collecting rare weapons and seeing what new rare weapon I got this time, seeing that glowing blue-purple color, knowing that there's a level 50 5-star ranked weapon somewhere out there and seeing that it's another freaking Splatling. I was tired of collecting Splatlings, but I finally got my 5-star Primo Olive Squelcher and built a class that was literally me floating in the air the entire time and having tons of air and far distant damage up. I was absolutely mowing these guys down. That was until the dreaded last couple of floors. And shoot, floor 99 took me just about 2 to 3 days of endless playing to finish because it had 2 strong arms, which is the strongest mini boss salmonid in the game. And I forgot to bring up the specials. Each member of Deep Cut has their own special, but without a doubt, you want to go big man. He gives you tons of invincibility and pretty much a long duration of just spamming crazy attacks on your enemies, which can take out large hordes of enemies all at once. After finally suffering for so long on some of those last floors, I made it to floor 100 to the secret boss, and it wasn't even worth it, to be honest. It was cool looking, but man, the boss was a breeze, especially with my loadout and the stuff that I've been fighting up till now. This boss meant nothing compared to some of the stuff I've been through in those dungeons, man. But it was a really cool ending and send-off, and it felt good to finally 100%, oh no, we're not done. I don't know if this is truly endless. I've seen some people online say 700, and then I saw another person said that they were at 1,000, and I know eventually the treasures will end because you can still collect treasures. There's a bunch of relics that you still need in order to get a 3-star relic on all your different relics. So yeah, there's reasons to go back in here if you so please. And thankfully the levels don't get much harder, at least from what I've experienced so far. But it's just more Splatoon Raiders gameplay if you want to continue to grind. This is something I can definitely see myself coming back to in the future off and on, but it was enough for me for now. After 50 hours of gameplay, completing the final boss and the extra bonus boss, getting an A rank on all the arcade mini games. I don't have the gameplay, but trust me, it's way harder than it sounds. Doing all that, I still have much more to collect and do in order to get the actual full 100%. But this is one of those games that's just going to have to be something I come back to off and on in the future, which I'm actually excited to do eventually one day. I have a good reason to come back to this game and continue playing, and that's all I could have asked for. So the post game, while it isn't perfect, it does have a good reason to keep playing. It's not getting useless stuff, it's actually getting useful relics that help you level up your perks even more and, you know, gives you more reason to play the game, unlock even more perks for your loadouts and your gadgets. I mean, yeah, this game just continues to give more and more content for a $50 game. So overall, you definitely get your bang for your buck with this game. It is riddled with content in the main game and its campaign and even the post game, and there's just so much stuff to do. It's addicting. I constantly wanted to just keep picking up my Switch, whether I'm playing in handheld, playing on my television, playing on the go, or playing at home. This is something I'm easily going to take with me on vacation, and when I'm just sitting out back at night, just not really doing anything, popping up my Switch and playing more levels of Endless Buffet is something that I can see myself doing for a very long time to come. My only real complaints is the lack of level variety and the lack of worlds in this game, and some unfortunate roadblock moments that forces you to grind. Besides those, this is another really special title on the Nintendo Switch 2. This is another one of those moments like Yoshi and the Mysterious Book where I judged a book by its cover, or in this case, judged a Yoshi's book by its cover, and thought this game wasn't going to be for me because I didn't like Salmon Run. And as someone that doesn't like Salmon Run, I loved Splatoon Raiders. I think I'm going to give Splatoon Raiders about an 8.5 or 9 out of 10. And to give you an idea of how good that is, Donkey Kong Bonanza got a 9, Pokemon Pokopia got about an 8.5, a 9, and Yoshi the Mysterious Book got about a 9 as well. So if you haven't picked up Splatoon Raiders yet and have maybe been on the fence about it, I highly recommend this game. Even if you've never played a Splatoon game before, this might be the perfect starting point for you. And if you're looking for something with some challenge, trust me, this game definitely has some levels that will test you unless you want to spend countless days and hours just grinding the same levels over and over again, which, trust me, even after playing through a lot of the post game, you won't have to grind too much. There'll be a couple instances where you might need to get a level or two higher, but it's not anything that's going to drive you to the brink of insanity, having to go back and spend countless amounts of hours and days playing old stages that you've already completed. But for those of you that have completed Splatoon Raiders, let me know down below what you thought about the game, and what score out of 10 would you give it? Is it one of your favorite Splatoon games? Is it one of your favorite games on Switch 2? Why or why not? Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Splatoon and Nintendo in general. And like always, I'll see you in the next one, and Jesus loves you. See ya, guys.